My name is Claudia Duran, and I'm the Managing Director of Endeavor Miami, and I'm so excited to have Erick Gavin. He's our Executive Director of Venture Miami. Welcome, Erick.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. For those that don't know, we go way back. Erick,
way
here, friend, and so I'm so excited to kick off our Endeavor podcast with our special guest today. So, are you ready?
I'm super excited.
Okay, perfect. So, Endeavor has been working throughout almost 25 years around the world, supporting entrepreneurs, high-impact founders to scale their companies in many ways by connecting them with investors and mentors, but most importantly, creating this peer-to-peer network where they can actually support each other. And we've been able to build a beautiful community here in South Florida, which I'm very proud of. And I see now in this beautiful office, we have a lot of founders coming every week and just using this beautiful space. And I'm seeing this community becoming more and more vibrant every month, every year in the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So I'm just so honored to really be a part of this community. And I know the work that you're doing for Venture Miami is also very, very important. And for our listeners who don't know, we have created a program that's called EndeavorLAB, and it's focused on supporting underrepresented founders in South Florida mainly. And why we did this, it's because we believe South Florida is still a very early stage ecosystem. There's a lot of startups. There's not that many growth companies yet, and we hope to see them come out and these startups grow into these growth companies in the next couple of years and be able to generate more jobs and local impact, and actually have that strong entrepreneur ecosystem that we all want.
Exactly.
Right?
And I don't know if you have been to the Endeavor space, but it's a beautiful space if you haven't. Please, it's in Wynwood. So
yeah,
you guys chose an amazing location, and it really shows how Miami is changing and growing. So really excited for the founders that are going to go through not only the lab program, which is set out to help some amazing women founders, but also the programs that you guys are putting on through Scale Up. I think those are going to be amazing founders who come through those programs and continue on into our ecosystem.
Yes, and that's why we have partnered with Venture Miami for our next women cohort of founders. And so for those who don't know, we have a history with Venture Miami and the city of Miami. Did you know that in 2019, the first EndeavorLAB cohort was in partnership with the city of Miami, and it was for women founders.
Yes, and I actually didn't know this. Claudia had to school me on this, everyone. She let me know when we were having our conversations. I've been, like Claudia mentioned, I've known her for a long time, so we had the ability to catch up and chat. And she said, Erick, did you know that the mayor had been doing programs like this for years? And I said, I had no idea. And so ran me through the history. I really loved what I heard, and I wanted to continue what the mayor had started. So really excited about this program, and it really shows a doubling down commitment from your organization about how important it is to support local founders that exist here. So I'm really excited about what's going to
I'm excited too to continue with this incredible partnership. So Erick, you have been part of the Miami tech ecosystem, and you're a strong believer in the power of technology to create economic opportunity. What role do you believe initiatives like Endeavor Miami represent in leveling the playing field for the early stage founders here in Miami?
So you put it really well a little bit ago in saying that Miami is an immature ecosystem, right? It has a lot of room to grow. So when we're talking about building out really scalable programs or scalable ways to give accessibility into tech ecosystems, into startup ecosystems, programs like this are extremely important. So it's going to be a combination between programs like what you're doing, other organizations that are putting on programs that now we have a proliferation of very early stage companies. And we all know what happens in startups. Everybody doesn't succeed, or people have to pivot. But the good thing is that because these programs are really focusing on building communities with each other, you're going to start seeing people say, hey, my story, is changing. My company didn't work out the way that I wanted it to. But I'm a developer and I would love to help you with yours. Or I have a feature that actually would work out really well in your company. So let me pivot and go in that direction. And that's what the communities that you guys are building and other organizations are building are really, really well. And also, as you put, what we're going to start seeing in the next, 5 to 7 years is some of these companies start to receive, beyond these Series A, because Miami is a proliferation of seed round to Series A. That's the vast majority of the VC investments that we see in Miami. And so in the next couple of years, you're going to start seeing people pop up and say, I'm ready for that B round. And that's going to be really exciting to see.
Yeah, well, I can't wait. And like you said, the power of the community, we have a group of founders, and I see it all the time, how they share resources. And that's so beautiful when they say, hey, I need a trademark lawyer or a web developer, and everybody's sharing the resources and the information. It's just beautiful to see. And that is how I think a strong entrepreneur community is born, when there's a peer-to-peer network and when they all feel and want to pay it forward.
Very much so. Being an entrepreneur is a lonely experience sometimes. You have to make a lot of decisions by yourself, and you have to normally start a lot of these things by yourself before you find maybe a partner or a co-founder that actually is going to make it, make sense as you move forward. So having a community that you can lean on to say, hey, I just don't even have the bandwidth to go out and look for an attorney that's not going to put me in a precarious situation, or I don't even have the bandwidth to start thinking about how do I do forecasting financially. That's not a skill that everybody has. So having a community to say like, hey, I actually just had that problem and I figured it out last week is an amazing thing to have.
And they most of them go through similar challenges.
Yeah.
And so that's the beauty of sharing those resources. I saw it last week. Somebody asked for a trademark lawyer, and 7 referrals came through in really 10 minutes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's what you want. You want a sponsor.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So in your experience, what have you seen as are the needs of these early stage companies, especially for underrepresented founders?
So one, and we just talked about it at length, is that community, but diving into specifics, the biggest thing is they need to battle test these business models that they have. They have really good ideas about product, or at least what they want to create. So somebody says, I'm making an app for blank, or I'm making a platform that's going to execute or do XYZ thing. But there needs to be a little bit more work that's done in terms of identifying how that product is going to actually create a business. So just because you create a product, or just because you know how to develop a product, doesn't mean that you have a viable business model. And having that stress tested either by investors who know what they're doing or by customers is really, really important, which kind of leads to that second part. I think after we talk about business models, the very next thing is people need to have a better understanding of sales, or what people in industry call it, like going into market. So how do we get these companies into market so that they can get the traction they need to prove to an investor, or even to a program like Endeavor, like, hey, we're worthy of being invested in because look at the customers we've drawn and look at the traction that we've built up. So those are the two biggest things that I see. Obviously, there's concerns about, pitching, and then trying to figure out, feature optimization in terms of the products and things that people are building out. But everybody's going to have those small caveats, but those two things in particular, if you can figure those two things out, you're over 50% of the way there. You're rolling if you get those two things figured out.
I agree. And that is the beauty of our program also, apart from the peer-to-peer, is also helping them think about what are those challenges that they're facing. And again, it's a lonely ride, but also full of stress and challenges. So how can we leverage on other people who are going through the same or have built companies? So that's the power of mentoring, right? You're not alone. We can connect you to people who have done it before you, and also preparing you to raise capital, because that can be also very scary for founders who have never done it.
Exactly. That raising capital, not only, how do I approach an investor? I know the big question I've been getting recently is, where do I find them? Where do I actually find people who are willing to invest in my company? And I was just speaking with a founder yesterday on stage. I think Evan, that I was speaking to, and he had a wonderful story about his pathway into saying, look, I didn't even know where to find investors to start with, but I had this very methodical approach about saying, you invested in this type of company that's similar to mine. Is this something that you would be interested in? And refined his story over time. So, going and learning how to not only find capital, but then create a story that's actually going to resonate with someone who's willing to stick their neck out for you, because that's what the investors are doing there. They're kind of placing a bet on you and your product and your company. How do you do that appropriately? So it's a huge learning curve for a lot of new founders when they're getting started.
Yeah, and that's why we're here. So Venture Miami is the entrepreneur support arm of the city of Miami. Can you tell us a bit about what motivates Venture Miami to support entrepreneurship?
It's seeing how quickly Miami has changed, and then understanding that there are going to be a lot of things that we need to do as a city to prepare for all of this change that's happening at a national level, but then also the change that's happening on a local level with a lot of people moving into the city and changing what the landscape of the city looks like. So when you talk about entrepreneurship, what we're really talking about is what ways are people going to be able to harness their ideas and the things that they care about and what they're working on to be able to make a living for themselves. So some people are coming up with ideas that have huge implications and impact on what our world is potentially going to look like, either with new technologies that they're enabling or with new approaches to how to help people do very, very simple things. But the big thing that I love about entrepreneurship is that it has the ability to transform what somebody's life looks like outside of the lives that they change with their products. So we really embrace entrepreneurship because we are a place where entrepreneurship it lives and breathes. We've on multiple occasions been noted as the most active for entrepreneurship in terms of index in any other place in the nation. I think specifically through the Kaufman Index that happened a couple of years ago. And we're going to consistently see that because we're a land full of, or a place, I should say, full of people who really, really lean on entrepreneurship to make a living for ourselves. So as we kind of continue to embrace that and understand what that looks like, creating education and creating pathways for people to be able to create really good businesses to live their lives is of paramount importance to us. So the mayor has made a clear mandate for us to be able to focus on making Miami what he lovingly says the capital of capital. We want to continue to embrace that idea and make sure that that capital and that idea of what it means to be a place that embraces capital is accessible at every single level throughout our local economy.
That is great to hear. And that's why this is such an incredible partnership. There's so many synergies. And just to give a bit context, Endeavor has, for 25 years, been supporting different market ecosystems around the world in 43 markets, mostly focusing on growth companies. But here, we decided to really double down on earlier stage companies just because of what you mentioned, that this is an earlier stage ecosystem, right? And so for those who don't know about EndeavorLAB, this is a program for companies that have product market fit, but that are on the earlier side. We want to look for some traction, at least from $50,000 all the way to $500,000. And so very on the earlier side. And we've supported about 83 companies and 100 entrepreneurs in the last 3 years. So it's been a great ride. And
how's that been working?
Very, very busy, very busy. And I love to see how the community is flourishing. So let me give you a couple of examples of success stories and founders that have participated in our EndeavorLAB. So we have Ryan Amoils, co-founder and CEO of MX Locker, and he was featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 and in this year, actually.
Oh, wow.
So under retail and e-commerce for his work on MX Locker. Another one is our dear friend Evan Leaphart, and he's the founder and CEO of Kitty Credit. He was welcomed into Google for Startup Black Founders Fund in 2022, receiving non-diluted funds. I think it was about 100, from Google. Then he got 100K from Amazon, non-diluted. So, you know, they're getting a lot of this recognition, which is beautiful to see, successful founders. And there's one other one, the founders of a company, women founders, Daniela Sichel and Mariana Morales from Opción Yo. So one of our Endeavor entrepreneurs, Abby Mandelbaum, and he's also a board member of Endeavor Miami, he acquired the company.
Really?
Yes, and he met them because of Endeavor.
Wonderful. Because
they were participating in EndeavorLAB. So this is the magic that we're seeing in our community, and I just really, really love it. So both of our organizations are supporting innovation and entrepreneurship.
Very much.
And I'm sure that you encounter challenges in getting access to entrepreneurs who would most benefit from our support.
Yep.
So what are some of the trends that you have seen in reaching out to founders? And what are some of the efforts that you use to reach and get to them?
So there's just two primary things that we do. One, there are manners. There's two entrepreneurs that I think sometimes miss out on opportunities that they can get into. One is entrepreneurs that know they're entrepreneurs, but either they don't believe that they need the support, or they don't necessarily feel that the support is going to be the best use of their time.
Correct.
And then there's another entrepreneur that doesn't yet see themselves as an entrepreneur, but has been doing work. They have something that's together, but they're not ready properly in the place to say that they feel they're an entrepreneur or to call themselves an entrepreneur. And so with the former, that's just about creating a community so that they feel compelled to say, like, I'm ready to take that step and move forward. So in engagements that we do, what we try to do is make sure that we're creating environments that don't feel super techie or super startup-like, just to create environments that have these conversations at a very, very base level and say, hey, this is what somebody went through that is very, very similar to what you went through. And they were able to kind of get to this point where now they're raising millions of dollars for a company that they thought was just a figment of their imagination at one point in time. And we literally just did that yesterday when we were talking with Evan about his founder story that he went through. And the conversation was beautiful, not just because he was, sharing with us what he went through to be able to raise money, but just simply the fact that he was able to have a frank conversation and break things down and not make it feel so overwhelming, right? And so that's what we want to continue to do. We want to continue to make things very, very at their base, accessible and consumable for people to say, this is not this huge black box world that, scares me. Is something that I can actually at least take a first step into and see if it's something that I want to do. And programs like what you guys are providing helps that first step into a proper direction so that they can now be a part of a community and figure things out as they go along. The second person who doesn't yet feel like they're an entrepreneur, I can't do startup entrepreneur stuff for them. What I do instead is create environments where they can come in and just hear people and talk to people who are tech-like or entrepreneur-like and not scare them. Yeah. It's about not scaring people because people need to build confidence. So first it's coming into a tech mixer that we might do, or it's telling them to go to the Wednesday tech happy hours that you might go to, or it's telling them like, hey, Endeavor's going to do this demo day for this. Just show up and just watch, right? So it's just watching and learning until they build up enough confidence to say, this is something that I might actually want to do. And then making sure that you capture people when they're in that state to move forward, to say, here's an opportunity for you. And that's why when we talk about building up infrastructure for our tech ecosystem, what we mean by that, or what I mean by that in particular, is that we need to build opportunities that happen on a consistent basis so that people know where to go when they want to go there. Because if they knew like, oh my goodness, this is something I want to do now, but now I have to wait maybe, I don't know, years before another opportunity comes up like it again, then we're not building a infrastructure or for our tech ecosystem that actually is serving enough people.
Completely agree.
So we have to balance those things.
Yeah, that's why we try to be as consistent and as much as we can, open cohorts every single. Yeah, we have 5 cohorts a year, so we have the opportunity.
We're rolling out a lot.
Yeah, so it's about 50 companies going per year just through our initiatives. But then we have the Endeavor Entrepreneur portfolio, so I think it's about 70 companies. But what you said is so important. Making them feel comfortable, making them feel that they're included in this community, and that they can be their authentic self.
Yes.
And actually being comfortable in saying, I am an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And also being comfortable in asking for help, because no, I until this day, I have not met one entrepreneur that has all the answers and everything figure it out.
And if they say they do, they're lying.
So it's okay to be vulnerable. We always tell them it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to ask for help. And everybody's busy.
Yeah.
And the entrepreneurial journey is all about you have a lot of stress. You're very busy. You're managing a team. You're growing a company. You have the pressure for your investors. but making sure you always go back to center and rebalance yourself to understand what are the priorities, but how can I also tap into with community and people in this community that can help me to take my company to the next level. And so what we're doing together is just really elevating this community so there's more support for all the founders that are coming and choosing this city as their home.
So what Miami does better than any other place in the world is have a diverse ecosystem or diverse tech ecosystem that makes people feel comfortable. Because it's one thing to say, hey, be comfortable in this space and, just have people saying that they should be comfortable. It's different to say, I see people that have been through experiences like me, that look like me, that resonate or have stories that are like my stories. And now I feel like I can actually be in a place and just learn from them as I'm kind of going along. So that those things are necessary to make people actually feel comfortable and to keep coming back to learn more, be confident, apply for a program or go through this incubation period that they need to go through in order to make their company a reality.
Yeah, and what I listen when we speak to entrepreneurs, most of them, and I think all of them, what they say they love the most is how welcoming this community is, but how open other founders are to really supporting them and, hey, let me give you a hand with this. And you're right, that is not the case in other places, unfortunately. So we're fortunate to have this incredible, diverse, and vibrant, and really good people building companies here.
I agree.
Okay. I agree. So your vision is to make Miami the capital of capital with an innovative ecosystem and economy that delivers for everyone, right? Can you please elaborate a little bit on what your value proposition for Venture Miami is in the next few years and why it makes sense to continue supporting Endeavor Miami through our partnerships and other organizations that you're supporting?
Of course. So one thing that I try to make sure that everybody knows is that capital, or when we're saying that, we mean one, capital in the traditional sense. So Miami is a unique place, and the mayor really made a point of this recently. Miami is uniquely placed amongst other major metropolitan areas globally to be able to attract people to come to Miami in a real way, to be another global hub for what business looks like and technology and innovation looks like. So we constantly are a nexus point for what people want to not only travel through, but actually come to in order to see business partners and actually build business in Miami. On top of that, when we talk about capital, we also mean that there's this traditional capital that focuses and is amplified by this social capital that exists. And it's a lot of what we've been talking about this entire time through the communities that we're building and the accessibility that we're building through the different forms of capital that are being provided both by outside people who are coming in, and then also internally through businesses that are being built up in Miami. So the coming of those two things together, that social capital and the traditional financial capital, builds out a place that becomes this capital of capital that starts to provide for people opportunities that don't really exist in other places globally. So when it provides for all, what we really are trying to attempting to do, where our ideal is to continue to build up a city, continue to build up a region that actually speaks to the different problems that exist at multiple levels throughout the city that can be solved by this combination of both the social capital and this financial capital. So as much as we can as an economic office within the city, continue to build upon that mission, we want to do so. That's why we focus on our STEM scholarship that allows for people to have accessibility into STEM education when they're going to college and cover that gap for that. That's why we support STEM organizations at the earlier stages that allow them to even get exposed to STEM education, because if you don't know anything about STEM, then you can't know that you should go into that as a career, as an opportunity. That's why we're supporting our entrepreneurs and partnering with organizations like Endeavor to be able to provide more pathways for entrepreneurs to be able to go and find their own business and pathways. So that's going to continue to expand. And my hope and my mission for what Venture Miami is becoming is to continue to expand what we mean when we say entrepreneur, what we mean when we say talent and or technologists when we're coming through. And that's going to be a lot of different things. Some of it's going to be your traditional developer, but a lot of it's going to be like, your analyst and your product manager and non-technology individuals who are a core aspect of what these technology companies are actually becoming. And then how do we leverage technology for people who don't build technology? So small businesses use technology all the time. How do we actually leverage technology to be a boon for small businesses that exist throughout not only Miami, but South Florida more broadly? So these are the questions that, we think about every single day. And so we're starting with our core of what technology innovation looks like in the very traditional manner. But we're expanding that and trying to figure out how can we continue to leverage that for different parts of our economy as it sits. Because as this global economy continues to change, we have to make sure that we're leveraging all the tools and techniques necessary to support people at different stages.
And when you talk about technology, large corporations and multinationals are looking into the technology that's coming out of these startups and growth companies.
Correct.
And also they are upselling to these multinationals, right, to use their technology, but also all the small businesses incorporating technology to make their processes or products, services more efficient, right, and maximizing resources or the use of resources. So it's almost like if you're a business, you need to incorporate technology in some capacity or way, but we can also help them and guide them on which is the best technology that your business can use, right?
Exactly.
And don't be scared of trying the technology because it will actually have a better result at the end of the day for your business.
Exactly. And I think half the battle is just letting people know what their options are.
Exactly.
It's not to say, hey, you need to use this technology.
Here's the menu.
There's the menu, right? And here's not like the 100,000 foot menu like the internet, because things get lost in that way. But here's a consumable thing that you need to read or to take in to understand. These are the options that you can use in order to better your business. Because if you miss out on some of these things, you may be missing out on building your business up or even sustaining your business.
And that's why we try and shine a light on all these technologies for the companies that are participating in our programs and the EndeavorLAB initiative, for example, so that people can learn about these technologies, right? And so then they're accessible. They can come to Wynwood and just set up a meeting here in our office and learn more about that technology. So we're opening the doors to everyone who really wants to learn more about these technologies or these different type of businesses that are right here in our city.
Yes.
And they're going to grow and become these incredible companies that are going to generate, hopefully, jobs in our community and have an economic impact.
Yeah.
So before we go, I just have one last question. We've seen in the last couple of years the venture deals and the deal flow grow significantly here in Miami. But from that venture and not deals, only like 11% goes to female founders and companies led by women. And that is around 2% nationally.
Yes.
So it's really, really low. Yes. And that's why I think it's so important that you're supporting us to specifically do this women cohort in the next couple of months.
Yes.
What can we do to really shorten this gap and get more capital to be invested in women-led companies?
We have to be more intentional in making programs like this. So it's one thing to say like, hey, I know the statistic and I know that this is a problem. It's a completely other issue to create not only programs, but specific connections to attack the problem directly. Because you think either one or two things. Either you think that women founders don't have the capacity to be able to raise and build great companies, which is ridiculous. Or you say to yourself, there are great women founders out there. We're just not giving them the exposure they need. And they're not connecting. We're not connecting them with the capital that they need to be able to build the companies that we know that they can build. So if it's the latter and you truly believe that, we believe that at Venture Miami, if that's something that you believe, then we need to do a better job of making sure that that connection happens, to make sure that as they're preparing for those investor conversations, that they have everything that they need. And then when they're ready to have those conversations, that we're connecting them so that they can actually have the conversation.
Correct.
And then the other part of it is investor education, to understand what is happening on the other end, to say, yes, the portfolios and things that you're building out make perfect sense, are you looking at these founders in a way that is actually allowing them to be more equitable? So that's not for us to tell what business happens. I'm in government, so people hate when I propose things like that. And I'm not at all proposing that the government oversteps in that manner. But we do need to make sure that at the end of the day, we're positioning people appropriately. And so as much as we can do that, as much as we can make sure that we're exposing these women founders to these opportunities, that's our role. Then all the market takes care of the rest.
Yes.
So we want to expose them as much as possible.
Well, we will. So we're open for applications, and hopefully we have an incredible cohort that we're going to announce in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And once we meet these incredible women, then we shine a light on them. We prepare them for the future if they're going to raise capital, but most importantly, understanding what are their pain points, challenges, and really give them a hand, right? And help them connect with the resources that are at their disposal here in our Miami community. So
Of course.
I'm really excited. I thank you so much for your support to Endeavor Miami. I'm really excited about this partnership and continuing this partnership and our friendship. So thank you for doing this podcast. This is our first episode, so thank you for the courage.
I am honored.
And so thank you for coming, and I can say that is a wrap.